questions on the Corvette Webblast.
Okay, welcome to the Corvette Webblast. We're going to chat about all things Corvette, sort of Corvette questions, and we want to encourage everyone out there to get involved. So we'll be giving you an address to get in touch with us. I'm Rob Ashard. I've got a 75 Corvette. I've been in the CCC UK club here for about 13, 14 years, and we've got some guests with us. First of all, we're Tom's guest. We're here at Claremont Corvette. Tom, tell us about your company and what you do. You've written books. Tell us about your involvement in Corvettes.
Yes, I turned my hobby into a job about 40 years ago, and it was the best thing I ever did from my own personal point of view. I started Claremont Corvette back in 1977. I was a founder member of the CCC UK, the Classic Corvette Club UK, back in 1979 when we had 8 members. And of course the CCC UK is a very distinguished club in that it has never subdivided. It's continued to be a good club all that time.
Yes. Proud
to be a member.
And you were up in Newcastle, or up that way initially, is that right?
Yes, I was up in Newcastle where I was at university, and I lived and worked, and I moved down to Kent in 1986.
Right, okay. And so you've had this into this building, or?
Yes, we moved from an old converted windmill in Newcastle into this converted primitive Methodist chapel in '86, and we've been here ever since. A nice solid building, just what I like.
Excellent. And also, you've written a whole load of books about Corvettes. Tell us about those. Yes,
I wrote my first book in 1982, which was on the what we now call the C3. But then, back then, it was just the latest model Corvette you could get. And it was a good moment to write it because it was the end of the line for that car, and no one really knew what the 84 was going to be like. But I put all the knowledge I had into that book because I was getting so many questions in my job. I thought if I write a book, people can read the book, and I'll stop getting these endless questions about bleeding brakes and what the noise is from a differential on a 63 to 79, and I'll just be able to quietly sell parts, not have to answer these questions. I then proved myself to be completely wrong. And I've carried on writing books. I've written 10 now, which have some of them been translated into both Japanese and German.
Excellent, right. We're also joined from just outside Denver in Colorado. We've got Jack Humphrey. Jack's from the Rocky Mountain chapter of the NCRS. Jack, can you hear us?
I certainly can, guys.
Excellent. So, Jack, tell us about your connection with Corvettes, please.
Well, let's see. I was an electrical engineer, and I worked at Texas Instruments for about 20 years. There were a group of us. We did a startup company called Combat Computer, and I had a wacky old uncle. And when he died in the late 80s, every Corvette he owned was sitting out in the backyard. And so my mother laughed and said, your uncle didn't leave you much, guy. Why don't you take those cars? And so I picked up a 54, a 58, a 65 big block, and a 71 small block air roadster. And that's what propelled me into the hobby, which is interesting because my stepfather was director of labor relations for Chrysler, and we had lots of cars, but 2 doors, 2 seats, sorry, guy, we don't make it.
So what did you do with all those that collection of Corvettes?
Well, the 54 I sold off because the way I looked at it at the time, who wanted a 6-cylinder with a couple of Skinner Union side drafts on it that the doors wouldn't lock. The 58 went to the motor pool captain at Cheyenne Mountain. That's just south of Denver, where our nuclear arsenal is controlled from. It's the place where if the Ruskies were to do a full assault, it would survive. And the motor pool captain was quite happy with it. It had a terribly rotted frame, and he said, "Don't worry, mate, your tax dollars are at work." So I took the rest of the money and put it into the 65 and campaigned it around the 3 circuits and got to learn about the game of factory concours judging. And that's what got me into the position I'm in, which is the judging chairman for the Rocky Mountain chapter. And I had a great deal of affection for the rest of the world. And when Trevor Rogers from the UK first contacted me and said they were thinking of starting an NCRS chapter in the UK, I threw my hat in and said, I'll help you. So I'm a founding member of the UK chapter, the Dutch chapter, and the Australia chapter. And it sure has been fun in retirement, seeing the world through the eyes of Corvette owners.
They're a nice bunch of people, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you've obviously been over here, and you've been to this where we are right now.
Oh, yeah, In fact, I have several signed copies of Tom's book, courtesy of Mr. Faulkner.
Now, Tom, you were just saying that there's a massive project that Jack's got coming up. Tell us about that, Jack.
Well, we have different levels of meets in the States. There are chapter level meets, which are rather informal. Maybe 5 to 10 cars and a day in somebody's garage. Then there's a regional meet that would encounter people from probably 1,000-mile radius, which is hard for the UK. You're so small to understand how big the place is. And then we have a national meet that occurs once, and we'll probably get at a national between 300 and 500 cars for various reasons. Probably 150 for judging. Okay, wow. And each year the chapters bid on the ability to host a regional event or the national event. Mm-hmm. And they rotate it from the East Coast to the central portion of the United States to the West Coast. So 2015 needed a West Coast champion, and they consider Denver part of the West Coast, which is it's a long way. It's 1,600 miles from here to the water, but still we're considered part of the West Coast, and so we won the bid, and we'll be putting on the national convention, and hopefully we'll see lots of people. I mean, Trevor's threatened to come stateside, which is horrors.
So how many judges do you need to be sorting out an event like that? If you've got you've got a massive amount of judging to do.
Yeah, that's correct. And at a national, the judging is conducted and administered by NCRS national organization. So our current national judging chairman is a fellow by the name of Roy Siner, and he'll be the head nut in charge of what goes on in the field. To judge a car, you need 11 people. You need a manager, and then you need 2 each for the 5 components of the car, so that you don't have one guy judging and making a call. It takes 2 people to agree. Okay. Various deductions that are taken. So take the number of divisions, which is around 15, multiply by 11, and you come up with the number of judges that you need as a minimum. And there are other areas that we judge. We have a thing we call bow tie, which is the car hasn't been restored. It's original. Those cars, the older they are, the rarer they get, because it's a supply and demand thing. Mm-hmm. But that's done on a separate day and with separate judges. So you're going to have maybe 300 people involved in the judging at a national.
Wow. So do you have any problem finding that many people?
No. Over the years, we've had as few as 400 families and as many as 1,100 families attend a national convention. So the turnout's pretty good. It's not like some of the problems that we had in England when you all first started up, because you had, I think, one guy there that was an American expat that had judged a Corvette before. So it's very difficult if you have no background to draw on. But the organization has been around since 1975, and we have lots and lots of judges. In fact, the problem we have is making people happy, because some will come and they won't get a chance to judge.
Right. Okay. So just tell us once more exactly where the event is and what date the event is on.
Well, yes, it's outside of Denver. It'll be halfway between our city center and the airport. And it will be the 19th through the 23rd of June 2015.
Okay, interesting, wasn't it? That we had a quick chat last night, and it turns out that I'd been within a mile of your home on the way back from skiing holiday. It turns out. So whose grave is it? Buffalo Bill, you're near?
Buffalo Bill, Wild Bill Cody.
Yeah, so we were on the way back from skiing in Breckenridge, and my wife always finds out things to see, and we were chatting last night, and that's just down the road from you. Tom, are you going over for this event, by the way?
I am going to go to that one. Yes, I went to the Nationals last year at Novi in Detroit, and I am planning to definitely go for that one.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to have a chat about some technical matters now, but first I've got a very butch man to tell you this message.
Any technical information in this webcast is given in good faith and without seeing the cars in person. Before undertaking any work, please seek professional advice locally.
Okay, I've been having a look through the CCC UK forum and pick out a few questions. Giotto C3 says he's rebuilding a leaky caliper. Before I order a rebuild kit and various other brake stuff, should I go for lip seal or O-ring? Tom, any thoughts on that?
Yes, we've been using O-rings now for about 5 years, and I have to say I think they are absolutely fantastic. But there's a few provisos with using the O-rings. They are better than the lip seals, and they're better to the extent it can even affect the brake balance. So when we sell the O-ring seals or the O-ring kits, which we keep in stock, we really say that you've got to change
the whole lot.
both wheels on that axle. So if you're doing the front brakes, put in at least 2 O-rings both sides. Because particularly in the UK, where the roads are very narrow and braking can be very critical, you don't want any chance of an imbalance.
So what's better about them? Do they just not let air in like we all know that can happen?
The whole problem with the Corvette brake is it has vastly more seal area because of the 4 pistons than any other kind of car. I mean, the C4 Corvettes have either 1 or 2 pistons. All Corvettes have 4 pistons per caliper. This gives a much larger area, and the difficulty is that since they're in constant contact with the disc and the disc flexes a bit, you have a sort of pumping effect, and in fact it's not that really that fluid leaks out. That's a worst case, but the more normal situation is that air is going in. So you think my brakes are really soft, I've got no evidence of fluid leakage. What on earth's going on? What's going on is that air is being pumped into the caliper past seals.
Right.
Now the advantage of the lip seal is that of the O-ring seal is that it really does. It's just much better. It also has to be said, of course, you should be using a stainless steel sleeved caliper as well, as a basis.
Yes, because the old ones just pit and rust, don't they, and don't seal. Because that's the benefit there, isn't it?
Yes. I really started my business in '77 when I saw stainless steel calipers in the States, and it solved a problem I'd had since over the last 6 years of ownership of a Corvette. My 1966 was my only Corvette, and I had to bleed the brakes every 200 miles. So I could bleed the brakes on my car in 2 minutes using the pressure from the spare tyre, a clever arrangement of tubes, gloves, cloths in a bag. So on a trip up the length of the country, 300 miles, after 200 miles I was running out of brakes, I would stop, do a bleed, and I'd be back on the road in 10 minutes.
And the order is back right, back left, front right, front
You're
left?
really, well...
There's so many different opinions on this.
Yes, really you start from the back right and go around the car, probably
Yep,
in
yep.
a clockwise direction. It doesn't make an awful lot of difference.
Okay. Jack, you've got anything to add to that about the O-rings?
Yeah, here there have been so many good rebuilders for the brake parts that we don't suffer the kinds of problems that Tom was talking about. 200 miles and having to bleed due to air pump aeration of the lines is just unheard of. You must really love your car to put up with that, but yeah, there's a couple different kinds, and you can go with the lipped rings or you can go with the O-rings, and both can be made to work and work reasonably well. It's a matter of clearance. If you have the correct clearance and you have smooth surface, you'll be okay.
Am I right in thinking, either of you can pick up on this, that one of the causes can be that your discs aren't running true and you get a bit of wobble and then that pushes the pistons, is that right?
That was absolutely true, and I think I should add that the problem we have in the UK is that, well, we remanufacture calipers ourselves right here, but because the weight of a caliper, they weigh about 10 kilos each, makes it really expensive if you decide to send all your calipers back to the States as cores and then have a new set sent over.
Right.
In the States, that's going to cost you $20 in transport for 3,000 miles coast to coast. From here, it's going to cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and
Yes.
it's effectively impossible.
Yes.
So we sell a lot of kits, and people keep their brakes going. And in defence, when I was doing that 250 miles between bleeds, that was 1977, when I was a young man.
Now, I've because I'm not an NCRS type, as you know, my car's not like that. I went down a slightly different route. I bought myself some Wilwood direct bolt-on calipers, which are way lighter. So actually the shipping wasn't ridiculous. But I don't know about you, when things are sold as being bolt-on, they never are. But these were, they absolutely were. And they look, as you know, I've got Kragars on mine, so you can see them, and they look nice. So that's another option. There's different ways of doing it.
But I wouldn't knock any brand, nor Wilwood in particular. But a brand such as Wilwood fitted in California or in Denver is terrific. If they're used day in, day out on salty British roads, the high-tech metals will fail within 3 years. And on C5s, we've taken off an awful lot of very good brand calipers and put the cars back onto regular just so the cars can pass the annual test.
Oh, really? Oh,
because the various lightweight metals, the aluminiums and the other stuff, the salt gets in, they explode, they're wrecked.
Oh, right. Okay.
And they're scrap after 3 years.
So the other hot potato, this one always bounces around the forums, is silicon or .5?
That's an easy choice. Sorry, I think .5 is a silicon, isn't it? But
is it? Sorry.
.3 is.
.3. Apologies.
We always use silicon. It's expensive, but it gets round all. It's not hygroscopic. It doesn't absorb water, and you can leave it in the car. It really is just excellent. It's excellent, but expensive. But it must be said that you can't use silicon in any car with ABS brakes, so it's only suitable to use up until 1986 on Corvette.
Now, one of the criticisms I've heard of silicon is that the water all ends up in the bottom of the piston. Is that a valid
No, it's
point?
not. That only would happen if you filled up the master cylinder on a wet day.
Right. Okay. Yes.
And of course, the other great advantage of, and I'm very safety conscious with my Corvettes, they're fast cars, they've got to work right. Silicon fluid is not flammable. .3 is flammable, and there have been plenty of burned out C4s, C5s, where a tyre is blown, the tyre thrashes its way through the brake line, fluid gets sprayed onto burning tyre, sets itself on fire. This has occurred, and in one particular case I remember it only too clearly. I wasn't involved, I hate to say, but I had just sold the guy the car.
Oh, crumbs.
And he was doing 160 miles an hour in the middle of the night on the M1.
Should have been doing it on an autobahn for a start.
Yes.
But there you go. Now, so Jack, what's the NCRS standpoint, actually, as a matter of interest, on having silicon in a car? Because presumably that's non-standard, isn't it?
We don't really care. And it's not that the silicone is a panacea. It's not. It's not hydroscopic, as Tom said, but it is aeroscopic. Now, you just went through how it's possible, if the seal isn't perfect, and no seal is exactly perfect, to be pumping air into the system. And with dot 5, you're going to do with that air what the dot 3 and dot 4 did with the water. It's going to go throughout the system. You're pretty much at sea level in the UK, but over here, well, my house is at 8,000 feet, and the Continental Divide is at 12,000 feet. So that's like 3,000 meters difference between sea level. And you can find yourself having filled with dot 5 at sea level, and without changing it periodically, and most people, the attraction is I never have to change it because it doesn't absorb water, come up to the mountains and all of a sudden you don't have any brakes.
Oh, crumbs. Don't think of these things, do you?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's actually happening then when you're going up and the pressure's dropping?
Well, the air bubbles start to expand.
Oh, of course.
Right. Mm.
Crumbs, yes. Not a problem
Yes.
we have here, is it?
No, I live on the top of the hill. I'm very lucky. It's 600 feet above sea level.
Lofty stuff. Forgot we were just going to have a quick chat. Our nationals were a few weeks ago. We had a different venue. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought the new venue was just excellent.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very intimate setting. It's part of university grounds, rose gardens, walls, lovely trees.
Classier, wasn't it?
Classier, so much better than a field, and more compact. And though the cars were more squashed together, it was much easier to walk around and see everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remembered you left something or you wanted to see something on the far side of the field, it wasn't a 25-minute trek. It was 5 minutes to get from side to side. I thought it was excellent.
Obviously, one of the things that's come up on the forums is that the C5s and 6s were in a separate area in the walled garden. I actually quite liked that, because I thought it was nice. It seemed it's a good time divide, isn't it? With the 5s and 6s, they're much more modern cars, and I thought there was a lot of them in that little area, wasn't there? And then you walked around, and somebody put a lovely comment on that they were quite happy in there, and then they walked around the corner and then saw all the others, and they really liked that.
Yes, I would prefer it, I must say, if we were all in the larger area and the other visiting American cars, the non-Corvettes, in fact, were in the Rose Garden. But I think with careful packing it could be made to fit. But I really hope we go back to that venue. I really thought it was great.
I've got two concerns about that idea. One is that if we're all in that same area, some people are going to have to go under trees, and I think some people wouldn't like that. And the second is that if we have visitors, there won't be as many as there were C5s and 6s, and you'll have visitors turning up, and then you'll be going, oh, well, you can go and sit over there. And I think that will be quite a sad little sight if we do that. So my view is that if you went for that format, that maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to invite the visitors, but unless you can guarantee you can get everyone in the main field. It's
a tough call, and luckily it's not my choice.
Yes. Well, I gather Paul has taken up the mantle again, so well done you, Paul, for that. Good. And yeah, it was great effort all round. Everyone really. I actually quite liked the food at the patio area, because it became very well, central. So everyone was packed together. Right. Well, talking of the nationals, we shot some video of a few interesting cars, and here's the first of those. Right. I'm now here with
Mark Weatherall.
Mark. Wev on the web. Right. How long have you had this? First of all, it's a C3. What year?
77. I've owned it for 19 years now. but part of that's been off the road as I was doing other things like renovating the house and having a family. So
well, it all gets in the way, doesn't it?
it does, yeah. Guess the money's obviously a bit tight as well, so now I've sort of got a little bit more stacked away. I can focus on getting the car finished, and I think we're about there now.
So take us through all the things you've done to it.
Started off with the body off, sandblasted basically everything that was metal back to bare metal.
And you did that yourself?
Yeah, I bought a sandblasting pot off eBay and then blast everything back. Used Pour 15 to get a good coat of solid paint on there, something that's not going to chip off quickly. After that, rebushing, suspension, brakes. Then the engine rebuild. That was a stock L82 350. That's now a 383, so it's a bit more torque in there and a bit more chrome, as you can see. Interior wise, full leather all through. The seats have come out of an RS Fiesta.
Yeah, I like the seats are really nice.
Yeah, the Recaros. There's not a lot of seats you can actually change them for. Some of the nicer seats I looked at were too wide, so they actually fit and they do hold you quite firmly in place when you're in there.
And so, have you had it down the strip? Have you had the car down the strip, done any runs?
Yeah, we went to Santa Pod a few weeks ago. We did 3 runs, but trouble is with the road tyres you just can't get the grip off the line, so I ended up having to basically take it off at tick over. But I run 105 at 13.2.
Oh, that's pretty good. Is it? I didn't notice. Is it auto or manual?
It's auto, yeah. A TH400 box.
Oh right, okay. So it's a stunning car. Oh, headlights. You've done something different with the headlights.
They were done when I bought it. That's the Monza conversion. You can actually buy the kits from most of the American stores, but yeah, they were fitted when I bought the car.
Excellent. It's a beautiful car. Thanks for telling us about it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, that was a nice car to look at. Interesting to hear people's stories. Right, we're now joined by a long-time CCC UK member who's now living over near Chicago in Illinois. Nigel, are you there?
Hi, Rob. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Nigel. Good to hear from you. So, first of all, how are you enjoying actually living over there? Obviously, we've all had holidays over there. What's it like when you actually live there? It's different vibe, I guess.
Yeah, it was difficult when we first moved over here, sort of adjusting to everything and going to the supermarket and trying to find things that we recognise as edible. But no, we've sort of settled, and I mean, I have to say the biggest difference here is that the weather's much better. And if we live in Illinois, I was actually expecting the weather to be really rubbish, but actually it's not. It's much warmer than I was expecting.
Which cars did you take over? Have you taken all your cars back over there?
I moved my C5 Corvette. In fact, that was about middle of June. It went in a box in the UK because we were back for a month, and went down to Southampton and we put it in a box, and it was shipped over to Virginia, to Norfolk. So I drove my pickup truck for 1,000 miles from Illinois to Norfolk, rented a trailer from the local U-Haul and trailered it back here in July. In fact, I've just started working on it again literally this weekend because I've actually finally got some time in my life to dedicate to the car. So I'm busily going over it and trying to fix all the things that are still not working yet.
Now, tell us that you put twin turbos on that C5, didn't you, years ago? And is it something you wish you'd never tried?
I remember Lance Millett, bless him, he said something to me many years ago. He said, don't mess with the General. And I wish it's advice that I'd taken, because A, my wallet would be a hell of a lot healthier, and B, I probably would have driven the car a lot more miles than I've done it in the last 5 years, which is basically about no miles.
So tell the lovely ladies and gentlemen exactly what you've done to the car then, and what's happened. Tell us the story.
How long have you got?
Whittle it down to 2 hours.
Okay, well, I bought the car originally, in fact, Tom knows, I spoke to Tom about buying a car probably I think it was 99, because I phoned Tom for a bit of advice, and he was very kind he gave me the details of Fred Malawa, who lives over in Baltimore, and I spoke to Fred. I bought my 99 through Fred, my 96 through Fred back in 1999, which, as you know, I supercharged. That was the black one. That's the four.
Yep. That was successful, wasn't it?
Yeah, that one was actually reasonably successful, yes. I mean, that one actually went. But so I spoke to Fred back in 2003 because I decided I wanted to buy a 50th anniversary one, and I wanted a Z06. So I spoke to Fred. I went over I think it was March 2003, and Jana decided she wanted to buy a Viper. So I flew into Chattanooga, went down to Ringgold Dodge in Georgia, went in and bought her Viper on I think it was the Saturday, drove it up to Baltimore, then went into the local Sport Chevrolet in Baltimore with Fred and bought the Corvette on the Monday, and then I flew back on the Tuesday.
Wow.
And it was really funny because I went in with Fred to the local dealer, and back then, well, it's still the case, I couldn't buy the car because I'm not an American and I don't have an American address. So Fred basically bought the car, but I went with him. And the guy in the dealership was really struggling to understand the dynamics between me and Fred, and he kept sort of looking at me and Fred and going, "What's the relationship?"
Okay.
So, it was very funny. But so Fred bought the car, and then I bought the car off of Fred, and then he stuck it in a container and off it came to the UK back in 2003. I drove the car, I think it was about 18 months, in completely stock. I didn't really do much to it. And then after about 18 months, I decided that 405 brake horsepower just was getting a bit boring. So at that point was when I started to modify it, and I've basically drawn a graph, which is basically the more money you spend on the car and the more modifications you make to the car, inversely proportional to the amount of reliability you get from the car.
Yes, fair enough. Well, because I guess with all this electronic stuff, it's how do you get around that? Because it wants to do one thing, doesn't it? And I guess
Well, I could never modify a car to that extent. If you want to go faster, brake later and press the right-hand pedal harder. That's what really fast drivers do. Everything else is just bragging to talk about in the pub. Right, Nigel?
No. What do you
say? I mean, I used my road car, and it was a road car for 18 months, but I decided to put this twin turbo kit on it, but the trouble was the twin turbo kits that were available just... I was probably one of the first people to fit a twin turbo kit, and the kit I chose, when we analysed it after it blew up, we discovered that basically the turbos that had been designed had not been profiled for the engine, because I didn't know all this, but the torque characteristics of the car and also the rev range of the car determine the way that the turbo should be set up, because basically you want the turbo to sort of add boost on certain going forwards. And these particular turbos, they basically ran out of puff at 4,500 RPM, which is exactly when the engine's actually making more puff.
Right.
You know, it's making more horsepower higher up the rev range with a Z06. And therefore, you actually want a turbo that probably kicks in a little bit later, because the engine, and if you want the engine and the turbo to really produce some power, you want it to sort of, if you like, add on to the existing
you want
curves.
The curves to line up, basically.
You sort of want the two curves to match, yes. You don't want them to cross, which is basically what was happening with the original turbos that I had before.
Right.
But you learn all this from doing stuff. I mean, I know a heck of a lot more about profiling turbos than I ever did before. So, you know, one of those things you sort of learn from your mistakes.
Jack, do you like non-standard Corvettes as well as the NCRS stuff?
Well, right or wrong, I own half of a Corvette shop here in Denver. Tom's familiar with some of the work that we do because one of his race cars has one of our engines in it. And Yes, one of the things that we have done is add turbos, water injection, and nitrous injection in a stream system to the later cars, where you start with the boost, and before the wastegates open, you start injecting water, and then just before you hit peak RPM, you put in a timed burst, no more than 6 seconds of nitrous. And those cars get on it.
Wow. Nigel, can I introduce you to Jack?
Yeah, I might be coming to might be popping over to Denver.
So, Jack, just a matter of interest, how far is it Vandermeer Speedway, is the drag racing track at Denver, is that right?
Yes, it's just over the hill from me. I can look out the window and see it.
So you can hear it on a weekend?
It's where we have the Mile High Nationals.
Mm. Yeah, I follow, I get ESPN over here and follow the NHRA series over there. So, and I also, as an aside, I happen to work at Santapod Raceway here in the UK on the radio station Nitro FM. So I go to
you have a secret that you're not aware of, and that is at Vandermeer on the opening day for the season and the closing day for the season, they have a swap meet. And racers come and they bring their garage with bits and pieces. Mm-hmm. And I found NOS interiors from '69 and from '58, and I mean, beautiful stuff to find.
In your work, you're doing both NCRS cars and some of this more elaborate stuff. So, but you're working on NCRS cars as part of your job, is that right?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm the, as Tom might say, I'm the money man in the shop, so I'm a silent partner. Tom is down at Claremont every day working his shop.
I love the idea of Jack being silent. It's just, I'm going to be grinning all evening now.
So the stuff you're dealing with here is predominantly the older stuff, but some new stuff as well, is that?
We just have an absolute mixture. We never know what's coming in. Mm-hmm. Right over the last few months, we seem to have been doing endless 64s, 65s, and 66s. Last winter, it just seemed to be C1s, mm-hmm. and we have a constant flow of C5s and C6s for servicing, C5s, of course, for fixing their ABS problems, mm-hmm. and yeah, we keep busy.
Excellent. Now, I've got a C5 question, just one failing to start, and it's a possibly dirty contacts. Is there something you can go, I know what that is, or not? Is it just, are there any common things, or could it just be, I guess it could just be
Well, if failing to start's a broad question, because you've really got to break it down to failing to crank or failing to catch.
I think it was click, you know, that sort of thing.
But on any car, the click is a bad connection on the battery.
Because you can't pull the amps through a dirty contact, basically.
Yes, and so many problems come down to dirty contacts on batteries. And of course, on older cars, which have been modified, one of the first things you always check is there a good earth or ground between the engine and the chassis? Something I really insist on looking at, because so many problems come down to bad earths on older Corvettes.
Sticking with electrics, there's been quite a few questions on our club forum about replacing lights, bulbs with LED lights. Have you got into that at all?
As a keen racing cyclist, my life is cursed by cars coming towards me, blinding cars. They're going to pass me with their on daytime running lights with all LEDs. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think they're dreadful, but then people love modifying their cars.
I think they're talking more like brake lights, stop lights.
Yes.
Sorry, stop lights, side lights.
It's complicated to do. It's perfectly possible, and I suppose if you want to spend your money on something, maybe it's safer than twin turbochargers.
Well, something I was interested to see. Of course, I hadn't thought about it. I was talking to Stephen Irons the other day about this. That when you put an LED light in your winkers, in your turn signals, you still have to put a load resistor, because otherwise the bimetallic strip won't open the thing, and the flashers won't flash.
Yes, and if you're on a long trip through France and suddenly you realise your turn signal's not working, you just can't stop at the next gas station and buy a little bulb, you're going to be into some serious electronics. I don't want to know about it, but I do think LEDs are amazingly good for replacing the bulbs in interior lights. They just improve the driving experience so much.
Now, someone had put a question about, because there's a light in the mirror on a C5, is that right?
Yeah, or a C4 too.
And he was saying he was having difficulty actually getting getting the mirror apart because he was worried that it felt like it was going to break. Is there a trick to opening that up?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would say I would put these bulbs particularly in the back of the car, in the major interior light places, because if you're on a drive at night and you suddenly want to stop and look at a map and you twist your headlight switch to turn on the interior lights or open the door slightly, you've just got great lights, and they're so much better. But changing the external lights, well, it's not for me.
That was Dex99's question, by the way. We're just going to have another look at one of the cars we saw at the Nationals. This is a little less standard. I know you probably saw it, Tom. It was the C4. This is going to give Jack a heart attack. It was a C4 that was made into a pickup and has a Hummer V8 diesel engine in it.
I love that car.
I think it's
absolutely love it.
It's got a lot of character. Let's have a look at it.
Great.
Let's have a look. Right, one of the more interesting cars that's here, I heard it clacking its way in. It's actually got a diesel engine in it. First of all, what's your name?
I'm Adrian Bown from ABM in Weymouth.
So Adrian, you've got a C4 here that you've made into a pickup, but more interestingly, you've got a V8 GM diesel in it. Tell us about that.
The engine is latest 6.5 model, and it's turboed as well. I'm running the mechanical DB2 pump with the 310 thou pistons. I'm running that pump absolutely maxed out. We're running about 18 psi boost. And last time we had it on the dyno, it was about 380 horsepower and 650 foot-pounds of torque at 2,500 revs.
So it goes okay then?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. On the drag strip, it's about a 13-second quarter, about 120, so between 150 and 120. So it's comparable to a standard 5.7 TPI.
And you were saying what else is this engine fitted into?
It's fitted in the Hummer, it's fitted in a lot of the K-Series pickups, and a lot of the other American trucks, shall we say. So I see. So you say it's turbocharged. Where is the turbo? It's down below somewhere, isn't it? The turbo is actually just in front of the back axle, because I run out of space under the bonnet, so we've gone with a rear mount.
Just in the right-hand side?
Just on the right-hand side, yeah.
So do you get a lot of lag with that amount of pipe?
Not at all, because the engine's making so much torque anyway. If there's a lag which you don't notice at all, if there is a lag there, it's a bonus. It just means you can actually get traction before...
Controls it a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, it's the most fascinating vehicle, I have to say, and I found it fascinating when I heard it. And so thanks for sharing it with us. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you.
Nigel, you've got some thoughts on that C4 pickup.
Yeah, AD, he lives down in Dorset. I've known AD for a long time, and I think originally he put, a C5 engine in that car, or maybe even a C4 engine in that car. And I think the engine died, which is why he then went to a diesel. And I mean, if you're going to go for a diesel, you might as well go for a Hummer diesel.
Yes, it's a big one, isn't it? That's for sure. I just loved it.
Engineering genius to get the thing underneath the hood, I should think. Well, sorry, bonnet.
Well, we'll have just seen it. It's pretty massive, but yeah, he's done quite a good job. I think the turbo is just in one leg of the exhaust, and as I recall, is down at the back. Right. So, Jack, you've got something you wanted to add about the LED lights.
Well, it's really about just modifying the exterior electrical system. I'm holding here two switches. This one is Shark era and from C2, and this one here is from C1. Both of them inside have a circuit breaker where if they pull too much current, the circuit breaker will open. And depending upon lighting mod that you make, you're going to be drawing more or less current than the factory designed. And if you do something like put in aircraft landing beams that draw an incredible amount of light, and they're really nice, you're going to be popping that circuit breaker. Secondly, Tom made comment on, or maybe it was Rob, on the turn signal flashers. There's two types of turn signal flashers. The originals that came with the car, C1 through C3, and those flashers are intentionally designed to be responsive to the filament current that's being drawn. So the blink rate is dictated by the lamp and by the flasher. There are other flashers that were intended for emergency light use, and they don't care about how many loads they're driving or what kind of electrical load they're driving. They're on so often, count, 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 off so often, count, 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 on so often. And if you're trying to do turn signals with much lower resistance bulbs like LEDs, go use an emergency flasher.
Lovely, thanks a lot. We're going to go with one more question, then we're going to, Nigel's going to just talk to us a bit about C6 racing. There's a guy, Z06 Monkey, and he says, what to do when C6 Z06 has been, Z06 I should say maybe, has been off the road for 7 months. Should he just drive it? What would you do, Tom, in that situation?
Having checked all the coolant levels, I would go down to the gas station, the filling station, and I would buy some Supreme petrol. I mean, our gas comes in 2 levels here. There's the basic and the good stuff. The good stuff has additives in it which deal with stale petrol, and a car that's been off the road, that is number 1 to do that. And then, of course, all the other checks you need to do, but 7 months is not really a very long time.
So presumably you would also suggest then that if you anticipate that happening, that you don't leave it full of petrol, that you would try and leave it with not much in, so when you put some fresh stuff in it.
There's 2 good reasons for actually filling it with good stuff before you put it away. One is that the car will be worth more when you come back to it, because it's got a tank of gas and the price of petrol's gone up by 10% over 7 months.
Yes.
The other is that I believe that a full tank is better for the... a full tank is going to cause less problem. But it must be said, of course, that all Corvettes since 1975, I think, or 1975, have a bladder inside them.
I think my 75's got a bladder in it.
Okay, 75 was the first year for that. So really, you're talking about a bladder, so you're not having big corrosion problems in the tank.
Do the bladders dry out and fail or not?
They seem to last forever.
Wow.
Well, nothing lasts forever, but they are protected from ultraviolet light. So they really are not a problem. Well, there's a whole another subject about bladders, but maybe for another time. I've got plenty of stories about this.
Well, hopefully we'll have a lot more webcasts if this all goes away and you all enjoy it, and we'll be giving you the address to send your thoughts. Obviously it'd be great to have your ideas of things that we can discuss, both technical and just within the world of Corvettes as well. So we'll be putting that up at the end. Nigel, you've one of the things you've been managing to do is keep across the C6 racing over in the States. Have you been to all the races so far?
Sadly not, no. I mean, I went to the season opener at Sebring, partly because I was lucky enough to get a press pass for the WEC for the season. And that was a very interesting race, purely because the American Le Mans and the new World Endurance Championships ran together on the same track, in the same classes, but in completely different classes. So it basically meant that pretty much everybody got a prize at the end, so everybody was happy. So the Corvette started off there. Now they did okay in that they finished 2nd and 3rd in the American Le Mans Series class, within the GT class, within the Pro class of whatever. And that was pretty much as good as it went for the number 3 car. The number 3 car have had a really odd season. They they've not won a race at all this year, and unless Jan Magnussen actually wins at Petit Le Mans in 3 weeks' time, he will break his sequence of having won a race in one of the classes every year since the series started in 1999. So this is his one and final chance to actually keep his string of going. But the number 4 car, they've done really well. They've actually won 4 times this season in the American Le Mans. They won at Long Beach in the second race, and then at Laguna Seca, both of which I missed. Timon went to the Laguna Seca race, did a write-up for the magazine. Then, of course, there was Le Mans, which we won't talk about because it was rubbish. Then, when they came back, they went to Lime Rock and then Mossport, both of which I missed. And then I went to see them at Mid-Ohio, because that's about 400 miles from here. So Jan and I went down there for the weekend. And the number 4 Corvette won. The number 3 was actually running second until they hit a GT Porsche, which took them out. Then they went to Road America, which was really the turning point for the season, because the number 3 and number 4 and number 3 were first and second in the championship, and the points were pretty close between the drivers. And going to the last corner of the final lap, the number 3 car was in, I think, 3rd place, and the number 4 car was 6th. And they ended up being in 4th for the number 4 car, because basically one of the Ferraris took out the number 3 Corvette on the final corner of the final lap, and he spun and ended up behind the number 4 car. And Ollie Gavin made his one and only mistake for the season, which was basically he actually ran into the back of a BMW, which punted it off with 2 laps to go. And luckily for Ollie, he managed to keep going and picked up, I say, 4th place in class. And also he didn't get a penalty for the contact. Usually the ALMS this season has been very strict. Pretty much if you touch another car passing it, you punt it off, whatever you do, you pretty much get sent to the naughty step, either during the race or after the race. And both the Ferrari for taking out the number 3 and the number 4 taking out the BMW, neither of them actually got penalties. So they were both, the number 3, if they had got the penalty, probably would have finished the race 3rd. They would have been repositioned, and the number 4 probably would have been dropped back down the field, and the points would have been a lot closer. But since then, the number 4 car's gone on to great things, and they actually clinched the title, the driver's title at VIR in the last race. And I will be going to the final round, which is in 3 weeks' time, which is at Petit Le Mans.
So you can obviously get an interview with Ollie Gavin for us then, can't you?
If you want me to do an interview with Ollie Gavin, I'm sure he would be more than happy to do one. And
it'd be great to get him on Skype as well. How fabulous would that be? That would be brilliant. Yeah. See if you can jack that one up.
I can also talk to the guys at Pratt & Miller, because I know a few of the guys at Pratt & Miller, and I'm sure if you want to speak to, for example, Dan Binks or Robin Pratt, I'm sure they'd be more than willing to come on and give you some time.
Well, that would be absolutely brilliant, I have to say, if we can do something like that. So I think we're just about at the end here. Tom, have you enjoyed? Thanks for having us, by the way. It's great to be here. We've got some nice cars around us.
But I have a question for Nigel, actually, if I can add this. Nigel, next year the NCRS UK are organising an event, a judging event, in which we're intending to have visitors from the United States and Australia to come down to Parcé-les-Pins, a little village about 30 miles south of Le Mans. And one of the attractions, of course, is there'll be a chance to see the yellow cars doing their best, and hopefully better than this year, at the 24-hour circuit. What chance do you think that the C7R, maybe it will be that time, will be out and racing at Le Mans in 2013?
Definitely won't be. It will make its debut, the C7R will make its debut at Sebring in 2014.
So will we have yellow cars racing at the 24-hour circuit at Le Mans in 2013?
Assuming, well, the number 4 car will definitely be there, because they will get an automatic entry from winning the championship in America. The number 3 car, I guess they will also invite it to run, assuming that maybe if they win Petit, I think that automatically qualifies them for a place. I think GT, because Corvette have won the GT title and Chevrolet won the manufacturer's title, I think, and I may be wrong on this, I think that automatically would give them a second place entry for Le Mans for next year. I can't see a reason why they wouldn't go to Le Mans. I know they're going to race the current C6Rs next season. Whether there'll be 2 new chassis or whether they'll go, no, we'll just use the number 5 and number 6 chassis again next year, I don't know. But I would pretty much guarantee they will be at Le Mans next year. I spoke to Doug Feehan at Mid-Ohio. He was very kind to, he chatted to me for a very long time. One of the things he was saying was that basically the whole reason that Corvette racing exists is to race at Le Mans. Basically, that is their focus. Okay. The American Le Mans pays for that in as much as the money that they spend, a lot of that is generated from the exposure of the American Le Mans. But the number one thing that the team want to win, you know, if they have a whiteboard at the beginning of the season, what do we want to achieve? Number one is always win at Le Mans. So I think, to answer your question, they will be running at Le Mans, but it definitely will be the old C6Rs. Well, I say old. The C6Rs, it won't be the C7Rs.
Jack, you ever been to Le Mans?
Yes. I went with Tom on a cross-country road trip from the UK in 2006, and then I visited the Dutch in 2007 and drove their leg of the road tour to Le Mans. Both times we were put up by European Corvette Club at Corvette Corral, and it's as much fun as you can have with your clothes on.
Well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? I think I didn't get it the first time. Various different people enjoy it in different ways. Some people disappear off to bars and things, as Nigel, we've done in the past on a couple of occasions. Mm-hmm. But
we'll skim over that, Rob.
but there's just a nice. I just kind of quite like the atmosphere. You've got to have a radio. Tuned to Radio Le Mans, otherwise you will not have the faintest idea what's going on with you, Tom. It's just
you need good FM radio headphones to keep the noise out as well.
Yes, yeah. And but it's an interesting one. I think you have to. It's not like a normal race. You have to soak up the atmosphere. I have to say, I just quite like going. My wife's not so keen. She doesn't quite get it. But there you go. That's wives for you. But we still go. So.
But Rob, it involves drinking wine, so I would have thought Sue would love it.
Yes, that's how she gets through it.
That's the only reason Jan's been going for the last 11 years, is because of that it involves drinking wine.
Excellent. No, but it is a good event, I have to say, and also just going down there. And I've been in the Pilot's Parade, the Pilote Parade, or whatever you call it, twice. Once just after my car had been rebuilt. That was a great thing. Done a couple of laps of the track as well. So if you can ever get to be part of that, that's absolutely amazing. I didn't, the first time we did the parade around the city, which is a beautiful city actually. If you go to Le Mans, you've got to get up into the little back streets. It's a stunning, beautiful old city, and the cathedral's pretty amazing as well. But I don't know if you remember, Tom, there's a collecting area that's right by the cathedral, and you sit in that collecting area and nothing much was happening out in the city, and then by the time you go on the parade, thousands of people have descended on the city and line the course that you drive around. You're only doing about 5 miles an hour. There are some people that occasionally do burnouts and things, but they don't really encourage it. But the whole vibe, people are just saying they like your car. It's just a really nice thing. And just when you drive around, you get a lot of nice responses, and it's a nice thing to do. So one of the things, hopefully, we might be able to do, I'd work funny hours and funny times, but if I can go to Le Mans this year. We will try within the Corvette Webblast to do maybe a Le Mans special or something like that if we can, as well as these. This is a Corvette questions program. That's the sort of thing we're doing. So, but we maybe hope to try and do some specialist programs within it as well. So anyway, thanks, Tom. Enjoyed it.
Well,
yes.
Thank you, Rob. Great.
Yeah, jolly good. Jack.
Yeah, I was just looking somewhere on the table behind me. I have a window sticker that says Parade des Pilotes from 2006 Le Mans. I was looking for my sticker.
Yeah, I guess I've got two of those somewhere. And also,
I've got the placards up in my garage. They're on the wall in the garage.
Excellent. Nige, thanks for joining us. You enjoyed yourself. I mean, it's we're just trying this. Hopefully, if it goes well and people enjoy it, we can do some more.
Yeah, it's been great. And I must now shoot because I have a meeting starting 12 miles away in 16 minutes.
Lovely. Okay. Well, also thanks to Cliffy, who's been here and he's been cutting the cameras and helping with a fairly big amount of equipment we've put together, but it's all worked. I think some of the sync between the pictures and the sound on Skype is a bit suspect, but let's live with that for the first one, eh? Hopefully we'll put things on the various forums this side and the other side of the Atlantic and let you know when the next one will be, but it actually won't be until Christmas. I can guarantee you that because of a huge bit of work I've got coming up. So we'll just put it on YouTube, tell everybody about it, and we'll let you know when there's another one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.